Hello and welcome to Pickle's Garage. Today we're going to be adjusting the idle mixture screws on my Z28 Camaro here, 1979. The most important thing to start off here is we're going to make sure that the engine gets to operating temp. So I'm going to go ahead and drive this around. Now, what I'm going to be using today is I am going to be using a vacuum gauge that's going to help me kind of dial in and monitor adjustments. You'll notice that there are certain RPMs that you want to shoot for with either certain engines or certain vehicles, so that's something that you could look up as well for your specific case, just to know that you're close. I would check both idle RPM as well as when it's in gear. But we're going to start off with a gauge as well, but like I said, let's make sure we get to operating temp. So I'm going to drive this around and then we'll be right back. Alright, looks like we're there. So part of this is actually going to be a review of this as well. You can find these on Amazon. Carburetor, valve, fuel pump pressure, vacuum tester, gauge test kit, car and truck. So I have heard mixed experiences with this, so we're going to see how this goes. But like I said, we got this to operating temp. I'm going to go ahead and take off the air cleaner. I'm going to show you where this connects and what we're going to be messing with here. So let's get started. So the first thing you'll notice out of the box is in this manual, there's actually a number of things that this can help you diagnose. And I think part of the problem is a lot of people will go into this thinking that it is only going to be addressing one of their issues, and they're seeing some of the symptoms of some of these other things and thinking that it's a problem with the one thing that they're focused on. So it is important to read this. I will go over at a high level, but if you're going to be getting this kit anyways, just go through this. Pretty much the setup is exactly the same, which is again why I'm mentioning that a lot of people will try and solve one problem and they'll be experiencing symptoms of something else. So keep that in mind. Like I said, we'll go over it. But you have your gauge in here, you have your rubber hose, and you have some adapter parts as well. Now, what they say is you're going to want to get as close to the intake as possible with these adjustments. So I'm going to go ahead and go after this capped vacuum line right there on my AVS2. The other thing that if you are going to be working on your carburetor specifically, you're going to want to make sure that everything that could possibly be correct is. And what I mean by that is I would rebuild the carburetor first if you are even sort of imagining that that could be a problem, because you'd be shocked how simple some of these repairs can be with your carburetor if you take them apart. So this is a relatively new, it's probably got only maybe a couple thousand miles on it, this AVS2. I love the AVS2, it works super well, highly recommend it as well. It comes out of the box essentially, exactly as you need it, but this is more so to test the gauge and make sure that I am optimizing as much as I can with this carburetor. But if you have an older carburetor, if you even have like more of an original carburetor, I would absolutely go ahead and get a rebuild kit. They're like 40 bucks often, and just go ahead, find a video. I even have one on Edelbrock's of just kind of going through it and tuning it from that point. So that is where you should start. But saying that you have a new carburetor and you want to go ahead and make sure that you're getting the most out of it, we're going to pop off that cap and connect our gauge here. Alright, so because this is reliant on vacuum, naturally you're going to want to make sure that you have a good seal on both the gauge and your carburetor. You don't want any kinks. You want it to be nice and smooth. So that's why it has a hook, so you can connect it to something. I have it spread out and connecting it to my brake fluid, and so nice and smooth. So right now we're just going to start it, let it idle, let it get to operating temp, and then we're going to go ahead and start making our adjustments as needed. So name of the game is pretty simple. You want to be in the green. So you are going to be able to test a couple things with this. The needle is going to vibrate a little bit at idle. It should be pretty steady as you start to increase the throttle. If it's jumping around, that's actually going to be a symptom of something else that I'll go over. But right now we're looking pretty good already, and I haven't even touched anything. So pretty much I could live with this, but we are on the bottom side, so I'll try and optimize it a little bit. Now the way that we're going to be making these adjustments is you have two idle screws on the front here. what you're doing is you're adjusting the air-fuel mixture. And so as you increase your RPM by turning it clockwise, you start to kind of adjust that value, and ultimately you'll get more vacuum, right? So if it's too high, you can back it off. Some people, what they do if you're on like the side of the road, is they'll turn it all the way in, and then they'll back it out like 1.5, 2, I've even heard of 3. So it just kind of depends. You can do most of this by ear, but again, with a gauge, we might as well use it. So I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that we're at a good temp. I'm pretty sure that we are, but like I said, we're pretty much already in the green. So I'm just gonna make the first adjustments on the driver's side, but I wanna make sure that we're in good shape first. So, let's see. Alright, so as mentioned, we're in the green already, but I'm going to go ahead and try and liven it up a tad bit. Now normally you're probably going to have to make a lot more adjustments before you move on to the next one, but for the most part these will match. And so I'm actually going to make an adjustment on this side too. I'm going to back these out. Let me see how that looks. Yeah, see now it's getting into the red. You see? That's kind of how the adjustments are working. So I'm tightening these up. And like I said, normally you might focus on the driver's side primarily first and then switch to the passenger side, but I'm just making little adjustments because I'm already in the green. So realistically, I don't have to make too many changes on mine, but like I said, you saw when I went counterclockwise, I started to move out of the green zone, and when I moved clockwise, I started moving into the green zone. And these, for the most part, will be pretty much equal. So you're gonna want to start with the driver's side, just figure out where you need to be as far as getting into the green, and you can see as you start to accelerate, you're gonna want to be in the green. So it'll move around a little bit. Obviously, sometimes it decompresses real quick, but with steady acceleration, you should be in the green. Now, I'm gonna go over some of the things that they mention as possible symptoms, depending on what the gauge is doing while connected. So funny enough, I was gonna go for the manual, but it has pretty much everything listed on the gauge itself. So if you're in this low area, then that is extremely weak vacuum, and that should mean that you have a massive leak if it's in this zone. Now, you saw when I was accelerating, occasionally it would drop down to that. Again, that's just it decompressing, and so that's not overly concerning. But if you're idling or you're steady revving and it's in this area, then you have a major issue. If you're starting off around here, then that should just more or less be an adjustment issue. If you have, let's see, so it says occasional drop indicates carb or tappets need adjustment. So if it's, dropping kind of steadily, or a steady regular drop indicates valve holding open, burnt, or chipped. So if it was like here and then it went whew, and then it came back. So stuff like that you'll notice. Wide fluctuations at the high end indicates weak valve spring, steady drop, and 0 indicates choked muffler. So there are a number of different things that you can operate with. Again, unless your carburetor is either gummed up or there's other issues around the carburetor, you should be starting off around in this zone, and it's just about adjusting to get towards this green zone and hang out there with steady idling. If you torque it like that, then you're probably going to go to a weird read, but if you just kind of hold it and open it up, then you should be in this green zone. And so hopefully that helps. It does look like this gauge works pretty well. I think different elevations might give you different readings, but again, if you're just roughly in this area and you're seeing the indications, then this actually works pretty well. So I am impressed with the gauge. I think there's a lot more tuning that you can do with the carb itself. You can change jets, you can change all kinds of stuff. Timing is going to be a factor. If your timing is way off, then you might get weird readings as well. So that's why I mentioned it is important to try and adjust what you can first. I have had a lot of great experiences with Edelbrock being ready to go out of the box. I know a lot of people are interested in Hollies or different things like that. The way I kind of lay it out is an Edelbrock is great if you just want to plug and play with minimal adjustments. Holly is great if you want to actually genuinely learn how carburetors work and make the fine-tuning adjustments. Yes, you can, for the most part, just pop them on a car, but if you really want to get the most out of a Holly, you really need to understand the inner workings of it and the adjustments, whereas an Edelbrock is something that you can absolutely just put on there and call it a day. So it just depends on kind of what your need is. But making sure timing is pretty solid and making sure that you have a clean carburetor is probably going to be all that you need to do prior to this. This is more of a fine-tooth comb, getting the most out of your engine. So hopefully this helped answer some questions, but thank you very much for watching and have a great rest of your day.